What is going on, guys? Man, I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be filming this podcast. I'm so excited for you guys to be listening. If you are tuning in right now with us, welcome. Welcome to the first ever Faith Unscripted podcast. I am so excited. I'm so excited. This is episode 0, and it's going to be about testimonies. It's going to be my testimony. It's going to be what my heart is towards this podcast, what we have going on right now, and what it's going to look like in the future of Faith Unscripted podcast. So I'm going to do my testimony just so you can get to know me a little bit more, where I come from, where, I grew up at, all the good things, man. And I'm so excited to walk this journey with you guys. And it's going to be such a great time. I love it. So, a little bit about me. If you don't know me, my name is Kyle. Obviously, if you're watching this, you know that my name is Kyle. I am very new to podcasting, so please bear with me. But one thing the reason behind that I've started to do this, and I started to do it, Coach Higgy, y'all may have seen the video of me talking to Ben Higginbotham. He was my teacher at Alexander. He was my coach at Alexander. He was my coach before Alexander in like pre-T, T-ball. And me and him, his son were just great friends, and we just grew up together, and we played golf together, and we just did life together, and it was great. And he got me on his podcast, and I was able to speak Jesus and talk about who Jesus is, and talk about what I love, and talk about who he is, and talk about coaching, and talk about ministry, and talk about community. And the Lord really put it on my heart, like, hey, you have a gift. You have the gift of speaking life into people. I believe heavily in spiritual gifts, but you also have the gift of knowing so many people. If you know me and you've ever been with me anywhere else, like outside of ministry or outside of church or like at a restaurant or something like that, I talk to a lot of people because I know a lot of people, a lot of different areas of life that I've just walked in, I've sat in. It's just been a very concentrated, like, time of life, and I'm always involved in something different. I'm always involved in one thing. And for those of you who know, my parents know everybody. So in Douglasville, Carrollton, Villa Rica, my dad's always referred to as the mayor of Douglasville because he just knows everybody. So God has put it on my heart, hey, show up. You have an audience. Bring them my word. Be a vessel. Bring them my word. So I'm so excited to be here, like I said already, and it's just a great experience. I can't wait. So like I said too, I'm new to podcasting, so if there's a little bumps in the roads, just kind of ignore them. We may have a little technical difficulties. We may have, I may be moving the microphone a little bit, I may have headphones, something like that. But I'm trying my best out here. So let's start by let me tell you my testimony. So I grew up in church. Right. I was a typical, go to church on Sunday. They had church on Sunday night, go to church on Wednesday, Wednesday nights. And anytime the door was open, hey, you're going to church. Right. A lot of people would say, oh, you had a drug problem. I got drugged to church. Right. Grandparents were in church. Parents were in church. Me and my sister were in church. And I want to continue being that family that goes to church. And so, grew up going to First Baptist Douglasville. I would get picked up on Wednesday mornings or Wednesday afternoons, and my granddad would come pick me up at the house off the bus, and he'd take me straight to church. And I would go to student ministry over there. Pastor Kevin Williams, who's over at Villa Rica First Baptist now. Shout out Kevin Williams. He was the youth pastor there at the time. And man, it was so great. It was so great going in, being able to, hang out with middle school students and even high school students that were same age as me, doing the same thing as me, going and living the same way that I've been living. So at the time, though, I wasn't a Christian. I guess by 11 years old, I became a Christian. But I was right around 11 years old when all this started going down. So my walk with Christ started when I was 11 years old. It was October of when I was 11. There was one night I just remember sitting in the basement and just the Lord pounding on me, pounding, like, you need to accept Jesus. You need to accept me in your life. You need to start right now. Like, you need to do this, and you don't need to wait. You don't need to wait. You don't need to wait until the perfect timing. You don't need to wait until, you go to camp. You don't need to wait until student ministry on Wednesday night or Sunday morning. Do it now. So I literally get up from where I'm standing or where I'm sitting in the living room. I walk into my dad's office, and me and him have like a 3-hour conversation about what it means to be a Christian. And I give my life that night. And it was so cool because in my mind I was like, man, I can't wait. Everything's about to go great. Everything's about to be perfect. I can't wait. It's going to be so cool. But you know what? It wasn't. It wasn't great. Life still went on. And being saved is not just something that it's not magic. Everything just doesn't just go away. It doesn't just, pop up and like, oh, everything's great now. I'm saved. Yeah. Yay. Right. Being a Christian is knowing right from wrong. Okay. Asking the Lord to come into your life, but the Lord begins to work in your life, and it does not change overnight. That is one huge thing about being a Christian. It does not change overnight. You got to work consistently. You got to work daily. You got to work at being a Christian. Being a Christian is one of the hardest things to do because you now have a microscope on you, right? You now have someone looking at you like, oh, you're a Christian? Okay, well, let me wait until you mess something up or you mess up, and then I'm going to, condone you for that because you messed up. Doesn't matter how many good things you did. The one bad thing, though, is I'm going to point it out, right? So that was a very big learning process, right? So go to, that was about 6th grade, going to 7th, going to 8th grade, started going to Crossroads. My parents helped start Crossroads over in Douglasville. It was a great time. Love that church over there. They're doing great things. Crossroads Douglasville. If you live in Douglasville, check them out. They're great. Pastor Greg is one of my really, really close mentor friends. One of my dad's really good friends, and we talk golf all the time. We play golf. I was really close with his oldest son, and man, it's just a great community over there, and it's great. So we go over there when I am in 8th grade. Student ministry was tough, right? There were some things happen. I'm gonna be super raw with you guys on this. So some things happen in the student ministry at that church with the student pastor, and the student pastor left, and it really crippled the student ministry, and it really crippled myself, right? It was almost like I didn't want to go back to church because why are church people being like that? Why are church people doing the things that they're doing, right? And I'm not going to go really into detail of what it was, but if you know, you know. You know what I mean? So 8th grade goes on, 9th grade goes on, 10th grade goes on, and I really did not stay connected as much as I wanted to. I would go sometimes on Sundays. I would go sometimes on Wednesdays. But it was like more of a, oh, do I have to go? Like, can I just go eat lunch after church? Oh, can I just skip this week? I got homework or whatever. Just excuses, right? Right. And, it came to a point where my parents were like, okay, you can make your own decisions if you want to go to church or not, if you don't want to go. But I think the biggest thing was if I didn't go to church, I couldn't hang out with my friends. That was one of the biggest things that I missed out on. Like, if I didn't go to church, I couldn't see the girl that I wanted to see that night, right? I could see her the next morning on Thursday morning at school, but sometimes that girl may go to another school and you weren't able to see her until the Sunday after or the following Wednesday. So like, you're like, I got to go to church now. So that's one thing that like kind of kept me going. And then there sometimes I was like, don't worry about it. It's fine. So that was up until 11th grade. In 11th grade, I started going to Central Baptist, which shout out Central Baptist. And that is home. That's home. I love that church so much. And I'll continue on why I love that church so much. But going to the student ministry, at the time, my buddy Ethan McFall, if you're watching this, shout out Ethan. He was very, 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 very pivotal in getting me back to church. because what he would do is, and looking back on it, I'm like, man, he knew what he was doing. He's pastor's son, PK. All the PKs out there, they're great kids. But Ethan knew what he was doing, and he knew that he was playing a pivotal role in my life. So what he would do is he would ask me. He'd just be like, "Hey, we got an event going on this weekend. Just come to it. Just come. I'll come pick you up. You can ride with me you can go to my house and you can ride with me there. I'll meet you there. Like, just come. Just come, show up. That's all you want. That's all you got to do. That's all I'm asking, right?" So eventually, I started just showing up, right? I would go to this thing called Sunday Night Live. It was on Sunday nights, and we just played like football, and we played ice cream football, and we played kickball, and we played basketball and volleyball, and did crazy stuff. Just having fun, hanging out, and then they just do a little devotion, right? So eventually, it was like, okay, I now want to go on a Wednesday night. Like, I want to go check it out, right? And from my 11th grade to my 12th grade year, I began to go more consistently. I began to go on Sunday mornings. I began to go on Sunday nights. I began to go on Wednesday nights and actually be involved in what I was doing. And man, I wanted to be at the church 100% all the time. And so senior years rolls around, and man, we are rocking and rolling over at Central. James Bluette, shout out James Bluette, came in, student pastor, and man, he hit the ground running. It was so great, man. We got to be able to go into home groups. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically somebody takes their house and they set aside a time in the week. It was usually on Sunday nights. Time in their week where they could open up their house to middle school and high school students and either do a devotion with them or hang out with them or play games with them, or you had a leader that came in and did the same thing, right? But there was always food. There was always, watching funny videos. There was always some kind of devotion going on. And man, James made that happen. That was one of the coolest things because we just got to hang out and chill and just be intentional with each other. And I just remember me and Ethan were hanging out with this group of friends, and they're the type of crowd that, like, hey, Friday and Saturday night we're hanging out, we're drinking, we're going to party, we're going to have a bonfire, right? They were that type of group. And not necessarily me and Ethan were hanging out to do that kind of stuff, but they were just our friends. They were our buddies. We're just going to go hang out with them. Everybody's going over to so-and-so's house. Let's go do it. Everybody's going over to, going bowling, or we used to go sit in the Dairy Queen parking lot. We used to go sit in Sonic parking lot and just hang out, right? Just hanging out with each other in community, right? But eventually those friends turned their attention to me and Ethan and were like, hey, why do y'all not do the same thing that we do on a Friday and Saturday night? Why are you guys different? Why are you guys always the ones that are, the non-drinkers, the non, doing drugs? Like, why are you doing that? And it was almost like a opportunity for me and Ethan to be like, we do it because we try to set an example for you guys of what that looks like, what a Christian looks like in the real world, right? So it was so cool, man. It was. I think about this all the time. Buddy of mine, he used to be an alcoholic. He was like a year and a half sober coming to church. Another buddy of mine, he used to go to church all the time. I actually used to go to church with him a lot back in elementary school and middle school, early middle school. He hadn't been in church in years, started coming back to church. One of the guys that was very pivotal in that party scene started coming to church. And so we got about 8 to 10 guys that me and Ethan brought single-handedly and brought into the student ministry, and were pouring into them. And they were there every Wednesday, every Sunday, just hanging out, just being intentional, going to home groups. And it was so cool to see because we took this worldly idea of what the world shows you that everybody else is, and we combined it with what Jesus shows us that we should be. And it was a perfect mixture of how God meets you where you are. He sends people to meet you where you are, and he sends yourself to be like, hey, I need to step out of my comfort zone just a little bit to go and meet people where they are. And it was so cool to see. And I think about this all the time. Like, and it was a very pivotal moment of my life to do what I'm doing today. And I'll get to that in just a second. To do what I'm doing today and to do what I feel like I'm called to do, right? So senior year goes by. I get an opportunity to go play golf, right? Go to Truett McConnell on scholarship. The only thing I had to pay for was my books. And I was like, this would be great to go to. I would love to go and, play golf every single day and, hang out with the golf guys. And like all I had to do was play golf. That's all I had to do. Just go do my homework, go to chapel, go play golf, right? So I go up there for a visit. Everything's great. Come home and I really feel the Lord like, hey, I know you want to do this. I know you want to go up there, but let's not do that. Let's stay here in West Georgia and just continue doing what you're doing. At the time, I was like, man, I don't understand why I'm doing that. Why can't I just go? Because, like you may be in college right now, or you may be in a senior or junior in high school, and you're like, man, I want to get out of here. But sometimes you are not in control of your life. Actually, all the time, you are not in control of your life. The Lord has great plans for you. Just like the song, Good Plans. He has good plans for you. And if you do not see it now, you will see it. Looking back at my life right now, I see that God had good plans for me and that he was being very intentional with what he was doing in my life to set up now. So I don't go and play golf, right? I stay at West Georgia. I remember literally being so upset, but I was like, man, honestly, it may be for the better. Maybe I don't want to play golf every single day. I don't want to like live, breathe, eat golf all the time. Maybe I can just go and hang out, play golf still, and just do simple college stuff. So what I ended up doing was I ended up working at a golf course here in the local area in Villa Rica. I ended up playing golf all the time. So I ended up doing exactly what I wanted to do. It was just not at a collegiate level. So it was great. I got to, meet a lot of people. I got to hang out with a lot of people. So I got to do the same kind of thing, but just not at a collegiate level. But the biggest opportunity I got was leading in student ministry. That's where I started. I started at Central Baptist leading in student ministry. And I remember the first night going back, I walked up to James. I was like, man, I want to be a part of what's going on here. Use me. Use me wherever you need me. Use me, right? So I began to, be involved I started in middle school ministry because there's a lot of rules out there with, if you just started or you just graduated high school, like you need to start at the younger age, like the sixth graders, so you can build up. And that's where I met Mac, Connor, Pearson. Shout out you guys if you're listening. And I was able to start at fifth grade when they were in fifth grade all the way up until they graduated high school. And I was able to mentor them, talk to them, be a part of their lives. Man, I'm still a part of their lives today. I still talk to them almost every single day. And I was able to be that person that I really needed in my life, be that person for them through their entire high school ministry. Or middle school and high school. So anyways, I'm a leader. I'm a leader at Central, and I meet so many great people, so many, great leaders along the way. Great students along the way that were in student ministry with me that came up from, children's ministry into middle school ministry, great mentors, great, middle school pastor, high school pastor, people that I still talk to today are very pivotal of the people that were in that ministry at that time. And I look back and I'm like, if I would not have been there, if I would have went and played golf, I would have never met any of those people. I may know some of them, but I would not have met any of those. and my life would look completely different right now. And so I go and, let's see, in 2021, right? A little bit right after COVID, as COVID was ending, I began to be the interim student pastor at Central after leading and being in ministry for about 5 or 6 years. And I guess it was about 6 years. And I became the student pastor, pastor director, director of students. And I was able to be there from 2021 to 2023, where I kind of took a step back to pursue my career, right? And so I'm in medical sales now, and it's great. I love it. And I had to take a step back to, to be like, hey, let me take it down a tone, right? Because honestly, at Central, it became to where we didn't have a pastor at the time. From that time, we had an interim pastor. And if you know what an interim pastor is, just as myself, just being an interim, it is basically just setting up for a new pastor, keeping things smooth going. Make sure everything's good. Have someone to report to, as if they are a pastor. They're just not a full-time, pastor all the time in there. That's their only job, right? So had an interim pastor, but it really felt, I had people around me to have good ideas, and I had people around me to, bounce off ideas off of. Kayla, if you're watching this, Kayla, shout out Kayla, to have ideas bounce off of, and hey, you think this is a good idea? Hey, why is this not a good idea? Why is this a good idea? What should we be doing differently? What can we do? What can we do to, bring more people in? Those kind of questions. But it was just me and Kayla, right? I was able to, you know how it is. You go and ask your boss or your executive pastor. It's okay, do this, do that, and just see how it goes, kind of deal. So it was almost direct orders instead of, hey, let me help you in any kind of way, right? So anyways, I really felt burnt out after I left there. It was one of the biggest reasons I left. And I will never forget this. I left in 2023, May of 2023. And I think it was August. No, it may have been earlier than that. Maybe July of 2023. I remember specifically, because it was after Impact. I remember specifically that Midway in Villa Rica was having they were having a series or a worship night going on, right? And I'm like, man, I really need to go. I need to go. I don't know why I need to go, but I need to go. So I show up to Midway on a random Sunday night. Show up to Midway, and the first person I see is Mac Pear. And she is super nice. If you've ever met Mac Pear in your life, she is, outgoing. She will be smiling every step of the way because she is exactly like Leslie Pear. And we love Leslie Pear around here, if you know Leslie. And man, they are just literally lights to this world, right? So we go into this worship service. I go and sit by myself. I don't know nobody. I know a couple people just because I crossed paths with them before, right? So I go, sit by myself, listen to worship. I don't even make it to the whole thing. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I got enough, right? I remember leaving and thinking, I don't know if I can go back here. I don't know if I can be a part of something that it's so big. There's so many people here. There was 500, 600 people there. I hadn't been to a church like that in a long time, since 8th grade. And I needed to find that community, but I was hoping to walk in there and find that community as soon as I walked in there. But here was the thing about what I did wrong, and I didn't realize I was doing wrong, and I did it wrong. You cannot expect to walk into a church and everybody just flood you and start washing your feet and start patting you on the back and start saying, hey, oh my gosh, I you're the greatest person ever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't just expect perfection when you walk into a church. But I'll tell you this, Midway in Villa Rica is about the closest thing you're ever going to get to that. Because as soon as you walk in, you're going to see a smiling face. You're going to see somebody, hey, what can I help you with today? Hey, are you here by yourself? Are you here? Are you looking for somebody? What can I do to make your experience here at Midway better? Right? It is the closest thing that I have ever experienced to that. And I did not realize that on the night that I came to worship night, right? But I was just not used to someone coming up to me and saying, hey, so glad you're here. I know your name. You may not know me, just like Max said, but I'm glad you're here. And so I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. So a couple months go on, and it was really just saying, hey, let's give it one more try. One more try. And I remember on a Halloween night, Kayla, the one I mentioned earlier, we go over to, she asked me to go to a Halloween party. And I remember specifically, literally 2 hours before I went to this Halloween party, this girl that I was talking to we stopped talking, like we broke up, right? And I was like, I have got to get out of this house. And so lo and behold, Kayla calls me. She's like, hey, I'm going over here. You want to come with me? I'm like, yes, please get me out of this house. Like, I cannot sit here and think about this. I got to go do something, right? So I go over here, go to this house, and it's at Gracie's house. Shout out Gracie. I feel like I got to shout out everybody just because. Go to Gracie's house, and my friend group that I have now was there. And it was so cool because I look back at this all the time, and me and Mac talk about this all the time, and Gracie and all of our friends. We talk about the first night that we ever met as a friend group. And I tell people this all the time. If I would not have went that night, if I would not have continued to go to Midway, if I would not have plugged myself into Midway and met the people that I have met today, I don't know if I would have ever went back to a church. I really don't. Just because of the way that things ended at Central. Not in a bad way. I was just kind of burnt out, right? The way that I didn't really feel great the first time I went to Midway, and I gave it another try and met people that were just like me to give it another try. I don't know if I would have went back to a church, right? And I can proudly say today, I am so glad I went. So glad. I went out on a limb and I went, right? Because today I get the opportunity at Midway to be involved in so many different ministries. I get to be preteen. I'm on the teaching team for preteen, middle school, high school, and young adults. Literally tonight, just came back from young adults. It was so special. You know, Jay Rickett does a great job over there. Connor Moon does a great job over there. Hey, and this is a little shameless plug. If you're looking for a student or a young adult ministry in the Villa Rica, Carrollton, Temple, Bremen, Douglasville, wherever you are, wherever you're looking at this from, if you're looking at a student or I keep saying student ministry, young adult ministry that you've been searching for, you've been, wrestling with, you've been saying, I don't know if I should go, I don't know anybody there, you are welcome. You're welcome there, right? And if you reach out and you say, hey, I'm coming, I ain't got nobody to come with, I promise you, you'll be sitting next to somebody, right? They will meet you at the door and they will tell you that they are so happy that you're there, and you will feel so at home from the moment you walk in to the moment you leave. Just give it a try. Just show up. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. Just show up. And so as I was going through my whole entire testimony and talking about my testimony and living out my testimony, I used to think that my testimony did not matter. From birth to, high school, I was always like, man, I just lived a simple life, simple testimony, went to church, hung out, got saved, got baptized, all that, right? But the more that I have grown in my faith and the more that I have grown to actually just dive into the word deeper, the more that I have learned that it does not matter what your testimony is. It only matters if you tell it. Because if your testimony relates to one person, that's all that it matters. Because that one person could take your testimony and that one person can be like, hey, he did it, so why can't I? His was simple, why can't mine be simple? Why can't I just have a simple go to church, be a Christian, get saved, get baptized, serve in the church, right? It can be that simple. But if it moves through one person, if it speaks to one person, then that's all that matters. And it's so great that we serve a God that it doesn't matter what our testimony is, doesn't matter if it's super, super crazy, awesome, whatever it may be, or just super simple. God is going to find a way to move in someone's life using your testimony. All right, guys. So welcome back. We just went through my testimony. And like I said, it's just, once again, it is so great to be a part of this. It is so great to have a platform that I can speak on. And not even for me. Like, it is just, like, the Lord has different ways that he shows up in people's life. I truly believe that. Because there could be some people out there like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to be in a small group. I don't want to, hang out with this group of people because all they talk about is Christianity or whatever. But I love podcasts. I love watching YouTube videos. I love just sitting in my room, just listening to music, right? And that is the beauty of podcasts. You just turn this thing on and just roll. Just let it roll, right? Just let it go. But I want you to give this a chance. And I say this because I don't want you to give me a chance. I want you to give God a chance. I want to be an encouragement to you every step of your way, just like God is in this Bible right here, right? So one of the first verses that I ever memorized, it was probably one of the first verses I actually probably ever saw. And it's not necessarily my life verse, but I want to read it to you real quick. It is Psalms 104. All right, and you may already know, you're like, oh, I already know this one. It is, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and bless his name. And then verse 5 says, for the Lord is good and his faithful love endures forever. His faithfulness through all generations. Now sit back and think about that real quick. And then we're going to hop over into, what this podcast is actually going to look like. Give thanks to him and bless his name. When we say bless, we say that we are thankful. We're saying we're thankful to him for what he's done. And we are lifting up his name to everyone around us. And I love right here where it's in verse 5, it says, and his faithful love endures forever, his faithfulness through all generations. It does not say just in your life. It does not say just in your parents' life. It does not say in your siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, grandfather, grandmother, like whatever. Or your second cousin removed. It does not say just for those. It says for all generations of all people. And I love that verse because if you give God thanks for who he is, and you show God that you are going to speak his word everywhere you go, the Lord will begin to bless your life in ways that you've never seen it, right? Little quick thing right here, and I was telling this to my parents this earlier and a couple of my buddies. So on Wednesday, I go on a trip for work, right? Coming home Thursday afternoon, I noticed this girl. She was on my flight, coming in. She was on my layover, and she was on my flight coming back into Atlanta, right? And I noticed her like when she first got on the plane coming home, right? And she had this like super bright green shirt on, so she's very noticeable. So, I didn't see her in the airport. Like I wasn't like, oh, it's like, because you know how layovers are. They land and everybody scatters, and you could be going to South Dakota, or it could be going to North Carolina, or you could be going to California, like somewhere completely different, right? So I noticed her. I'm sitting literally all the way in the back of the plane, all the way in the back corner, right? And I walk all the way to the very back, and lo and behold, there's the girl that I was talking about, like green shirt, and I'm sitting right next to her. My seat is right next to her. So we start having this conversation, find out that she is actually Mormon. So that was really cool. We just hopped into this conversation, and she started talking about Mormonism, started talking about, she used to practice Mormonism, and she used to go to church and all this kind of stuff. And so one thing I asked her is if she was a Christian, and she said no, but she said that she had been to churches before, right? And then she asked me what I was. I was like, yes, I'm a Christian. I go to a Baptist church, or I was raised Baptist. And she was like, oh my gosh, I was raised Baptist as well. So it was kind of crazy because she went from being Baptist, and she was a practicing Mormon, right? And obviously, I'm not going to give her name out. Like, don't ask that question because it's her own story. So, I think the conversation ended up, we just started talking to each other about just our different religions. It was really cool. A lot of it was like very similar in what we believed, right? But it was really crazy because at the very end of the conversation, I kind of asked her, I had kind of picked up like she doesn't go to church. She's not going to go back to church. She doesn't want to, be a part of something that she may not believe in. And I asked her, I was like, hey, what would it take for you to go to church again? And she kind of stopped, and she was just like, it would probably take a lot because I've had a lot of church hurt. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And she just kind of went on into, how she just didn't feel comfortable at some churches, that she didn't fit in at churches, that she didn't feel like family or feel like she needed to be there. People just kind of looked at her differently. Like, they saw someone that was new and they strayed away from her is what the message I was getting from her. And so I just simply asked her, I was like, can I connect with you? Can I like get your number? Like, I want to be able to connect with you. And cause she's from Atlanta, or she lives in Atlanta, and so, or in the Georgia area. And so I was like, I would love to stay connected with you. And so, definitely a pivotal moment where I was like, look, we don't get this opportunity often because a lot of times when we bring up Christianity, everyone shuts it down, right? It is hard to just go up, talk to somebody randomly and be like, hey, let me tell you about Jesus. And they're like, hey, no, leave me alone, right? That's how the world is now. And so, but being able to talk to her, be able to connect with her, being able to be in conversation with her, just normal conversation. We sit there and we talk the whole entire flight. Just have that conversation. And I love what she said, towards kind of the end. She was like, I'm not wanting to go to church right now, but that could change. So it's like an open heart to, yes, I can change. Yes, I may be open at one point. And so there's definitely going to be, in the next few weeks, there's definitely going to be, a text or a call or something to her. Be like, hey, how are you doing? What is life? How's life treating you? What's going on in life? I'd love for you to come check us out. Those kind of things. And I say all that to say this, and it's not because of me. It is the Lord coming to me, being a vessel through me, and talking to someone that may be struggling in their life right now, that you have no idea I have no idea what she's going through, right? I have no idea what she was doing that night whenever she left the airport. I have no idea who she was talking to when she left the airport. They could have been going to a party for all I know, right? The Lord steps in and the Lord shows up when you take that step of obedience to say, hey, what does your church life look like? Are you a Christian? After, having a conversation with them about wherever you're coming from or where you're at or something like that, right? Take that step of obedience. Be a vessel for the Lord and allow the Lord to speak through you, right? And that is what a lot of this podcast is going to look like. I got a couple things on here that, I'm just going to preface and we're going to talk about it a little bit. And then honestly, I'm going to be done because I want you guys to be able to dwell on what's going on here. And obviously, if you have questions or if you have concerns, we're definitely going to open this up to hey, DM the Instagram page. Hey, slide up on the YouTube comment section, right? And I want to hear what you guys have to say about what's going on in your life, right? So the first thing one of the things we're going to be doing is hot seat questions, right? I'm going to post on Instagram, post on, I almost said Twitter. Twitter's not a thing anymore. Post on Facebook and, put on there hey, I want to hear your hot seat questions. I want to hear your intentional questions that you may have about what Christianity looks like, about who wrote the Bible. I want to know, what does it mean to become a Christian? What does it mean to live out being a Christian? How can I help my friend that is struggling in life right now? How can I help her become closer to God? Questions that you don't just get by going asking a random person on the side of the road, right? I want the intentional questions on what things look like. And we're just going to have a hot seat night and we're going to be able to answer these questions and we're going to be able to dive into these questions on what that looks like, right? Second off, we're going to have guest testimony nights. I'm going to be able to get you guys on here. And that's going to be so cool to see because I'll be able to, you'll be able to reach out on the DMs, on text messages, whatever that may be, comment section, whatever that may be, and reach out and be like, hey, God's been putting this on my heart. I want to share my testimony. And it'll be a perfect place to share your testimony because you're not in the front of a crowd. You're just sitting here staring at a camera. And so you'll be able to go into this area and we can walk through it together and we can talk about your testimony. I can ask you a couple questions about what that means and how your walk was. And I've got a couple of people that are already going to be coming on. And so it'll be a good little setup and you'll be able to see what that looks like. And so, yeah, so that's going to be one of the other things. Real life, real faith. So that was actually going to be part of what the title was going to be before Faith Unscripted came along. And it's just going to be real, raw world situations that is happening or that has happened or whatever that may be going on. And we're going to explore that through a faith lens, right? For example, it could be, maybe a situation where, a family member died and it's been really hard because I don't know if he was a Christian or not, right? How can you explore that through a faith lens and how can you make sure that, whether he was a Christian or not, you can kind of narrow that down and what can you do to make sure that doesn't happen to another one of your family members, right? And just be practical and honest about things and, just times in your life where you have been and where you have, intertwined with other believers or non-believers or something or stuff like that. And one thing kind of going back into the girl I met on the plane, one of the taglines that I want this podcast to be about is you need to be living on mission every single day. And if you don't know what that means, living on mission, that means living for Jesus every day, right? We talk about in Acts 1:8, it talks about Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the world, right? Your local school, your local college, your workplace, your community, your family members, your restaurant that you go to every single Wednesday night, your church community, your best friends that you hang out 3 or 4, whoever that may be, your people you see on the golf course, people you see playing pickleball, people you see playing tennis, people you see on your walk. Those people are all lumped in to your Judea and Samaria, right? It is your city. It is your close inner circle. It is your community. And that is your mission field. That is what you need to be striving to go after, to be after, to say, hey, if I can't physically pick myself up and go to Israel, or if I can't physically pick myself up and go to Guatemala or, Cuba or Panama or even to Alabama or to Mississippi or Tennessee or somewhere right around your surrounding states, and I can't physically pick myself up and go and be on mission out there, start with where you are now, right? You need to be living on yourself, on mission every single day, right? Because Jesus' last commandment before he went to heaven in Matthew 28 was, go make disciples of all nations. And last time I checked, the U.S. is a nation, and you need to be baptizing them in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit and leading them to Christ. And that's what that looks like. And so, man, I'm just so excited to be able to have these opportunities, to have these hot seat questions, to have these guest testimonies, to have these real life situations that we walk through every single day and break them down. I'm so excited to, have people like, a John Rickett on here, to have it like, a couple of different pastors that I'm friends with, to be able to step into that ministry moment and be able to break down things that you guys have going on in your lives that we want to be a part of. And we want to, necessarily, I will never be like, oh, so-and-so asked this question. Here's a question from so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. We're just jumping in it. Like, hey, if you have a question, just put it in there. It's totally anonymous, right? But we want to be able to come in, show up, and work in your life by you watching this podcast and allow Jesus to work through us to speak to you in ways that you did not even know that you could be spoke to, and in ways that are super easy and comfortable for you just to show up and just watch. Listen, going down the road. Listen to it, while you're waiting for, on your lunch break, right? Just being able to jump in, dive in, and just listen to what the Lord has for you, right? Because everything that I'm doing in this podcast is not, I'm going to flip through this Bible real quick and we're going to go through Matthew 3 and that's it, right? It is going to be, the Lord put this on my heart. I've got to put this question in here. I've got to put this in here, and we're going to talk about it, right? Like I said, it's going to be completely anonymous, but we are going to talk about it because there's a lot of things that we hide from the Lord and that we hide from our friends and that we try to, get out of, like, oh, the mindset, like, oh, well, I'll just talk about it later. I'll push it down as far as I can, like, blah, blah, blah. But we need to surface those things and we need to talk about it, right? And that's my intention here. I want to be able to come on here and start an episode. My next episode could be guest testimonies, and I have a guest on here, right? And they're just going to give their testimony, but being able to listen to that testimony and being able to gain something from it wherever you are, wherever you're listening from, that is what the Lord has for you. He wants you to come to him, and he is meeting you where you are right now. So, and honestly, too, if you have like questions about anything, even if you're like, hey, I'd love for you just to respond to me about this. Like, I just have a question about this. You know, I talked about it on the podcast, but I just have a question. Like, I would love to set up a call. I would love to set up a time for us to meet, like if you're in the local area, and just talk about it, right? It would be so cool for me to, you know, to hop in the car and, you know, go to the coffee shop and be like, hey, let's talk. I'm struggling with this. Like, let's talk about this, right? And that's what I want this podcast to be. So, man, I'm so thankful that you guys tuned in. I may be a boring talker. I don't really know. But I'm so glad that you were able to, I'm glad you took time out of your day to pay attention to this and look at this and, you know, really see what God has for you. And I'm so excited for what God has next. And, yeah, we'll see you then.